Welcome back to Global History Explorer, your ultimate destination for fascinating biographical journeys through time. I'm absolutely thrilled you've joined me today as we dive deep into one of the most captivating and controversial figures of our modern era. Today's exploration takes us through the extraordinary life of Donald John Trump, a man whose story reads like an epic novel filled with triumphs, setbacks, ambition, and relentless determination. Chapter 1. The Queen's Beginning. A Star is Born. Let me paint you a picture of post-war America, specifically June 14, 1946. While the world was still recovering from the devastation of World War II, something significant was happening in the bustling, diverse neighborhood of Queens, New York City. On this summer day, a baby boy entered the world who would eventually become one of the most recognizable names on the planet. His parents, Fred and Mary Trump, had no idea they were welcoming a future president into their family. Fred Trump wasn't just any ordinary father. He was already making waves in New York's competitive real estate market, constructing residential buildings that would house thousands of families across the city. His business acumen was legendary among his peers, and his work ethic was absolutely unmatched. Meanwhile, Mary McLeod Trump brought her own fascinating story to the family. Born in the remote Hebrides Islands of Scotland, she had crossed an entire ocean to build a new life in America, carrying with her the determination and resilience that would later become hallmarks of her son's character. The Trump household buzzed with activity and ambition. Donald wasn't growing up as an only child. Far from it. He was surrounded by 4 siblings who would each carve out their own successful paths in life. Mary Ann, the eldest, would eventually become a federal judge. Fred Jr., tragically, would struggle with alcoholism and die young, leaving a profound impact on Donald's decision to avoid alcohol entirely. Elizabeth would build a successful career in banking, while Robert would become Donald's trusted advisor and closest confidant throughout his business career. What made Donald's childhood unique wasn't just the family's wealth, it was the combination of privilege and rigorous expectations. Fred Trump believed that money without hard work created weak character. Every morning at the breakfast table, young Donald heard discussions about construction projects, business deals, tenant relations, and the complex art of New York real estate development. These weren't just casual conversations. They were Donald's first business school lessons, absorbed at an age when most children were focused on cartoons and playground games. Chapter 2. Education and Character Formation. The educational journey that shaped Donald Trump's mind began at Key Forest School in Queens, where he spent his earliest academic years. However, by the time Donald reached his teenage years, his parents noticed that he was becoming increasingly restless and rebellious. Rather than seeing this as a problem, Fred Trump saw it as raw energy that needed proper channeling and discipline. This insight led to one of the most pivotal decisions in Donald's young life: enrollment at New York Military Academy. Located in Cornwall-on-Hudson, this prestigious institution was known for transforming energetic young men into disciplined leaders. The Academy's motto, courage, honor, duty, became deeply ingrained in Donald's developing worldview. Here, he learned the importance of structure, hierarchy, and personal responsibility. The military environment taught him to think strategically, to lead from the front, and to never show weakness in the face of challenges. At the academy, Donald didn't just survive, he thrived. He excelled in athletics, particularly baseball, where his competitive spirit and natural leadership abilities began to shine. His fellow cadets remember him as someone who commanded respect, not through intimidation, but through sheer force of personality and unwavering confidence. The discipline he learned during these formative years would later become crucial when he faced the enormous pressures of running a global business empire and eventually leading the most powerful nation on earth. College beckoned next, And Donald's academic journey continued at Fordham University in the Bronx. For 2 years, he immersed himself in the liberal arts education that Fordham provided, but his entrepreneurial spirit was already stirring. He found himself constantly thinking about business opportunities, real estate deals, and the lessons his father had taught him about building wealth through property development. The call of serious business education proved irresistible, leading Donald to make another life-changing decision: transferring to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Wharton wasn't just any business school. It was widely regarded as the premier institution for anyone serious about understanding finance, economics, and entrepreneurship. The school's reputation for producing successful business leaders was legendary, and Donald knew that a Wharton degree would open doors that might otherwise remain closed. During his time at Wharton, Donald immersed himself in the study of economics, real estate finance, and business strategy. He wasn't just memorizing textbooks, he was learning to think like a deal maker, to analyze market trends, and to identify opportunities that others might miss. His professors remember him as an engaged student who frequently related classroom theories to real-world applications he'd observed in his father's business. By the time he graduated in 1968 with his Bachelor of Science in Economics, Donald Trump was armed with both theoretical knowledge and practical experience, a combination that would prove absolutely invaluable in the years ahead.
Chapter 3. Early Business Years, Learning the Game. Fresh out of Wharton with his economics degree in hand, Donald faced a decision that would define his entire career trajectory. He could have chosen to strike out on his own, perhaps starting a small business or joining an established corporation. Instead, he made the strategic decision to join his father's company, the Trump Organization, where he could learn the family business from the ground up while having access to established relationships, proven systems, and substantial financial resources. But Donald wasn't content to simply follow in his father's footsteps. He had much bigger ambitions. While Fred Trump had built a successful business focusing primarily on middle-class housing in Queens and Brooklyn, Donald's vision extended far beyond the outer boroughs. He set his sights on Manhattan, the glittering heart of New York City, where the biggest deals were made and the most prestigious properties commanded astronomical prices. The 1970s marked the beginning of Donald's transformation from promising young businessman to rising star in New York's competitive real estate scene. His first major project would become the stuff of legend, the complete renovation and rebranding of the Commodore Hotel near Grand Central Terminal. When Donald first saw this property, most people saw a failing business in a declining neighborhood. Donald saw pure potential. The Commodore Hotel project required every skill Donald had learned from his father, every lesson from his military academy days, and every bit of financial knowledge he had acquired at Wharton. He needed to negotiate with city officials for tax abatements, convince banks to provide financing for an unproven young developer, and coordinate with architects and contractors to completely transform the property. The challenges seemed insurmountable, but Donald approached each obstacle with the same methodical determination that had served him throughout his education. When the renovated hotel reopened as the Grand Hyatt in 1980, it wasn't just a business success, it was a statement. The gleaming facade, luxurious interiors, and prime location attracted guests from around the world. More importantly for Donald's future, the project established his reputation as someone who could take on complex, high-stakes deals and deliver spectacular results. The New York media took notice, and Donald Trump's name began appearing in newspapers and magazines as a rising force in Manhattan real estate. Chapter 4. The 1980s, Building an Empire and a Brand. If the 1970s were about learning and establishing credibility, the 1980s were about explosive growth and building a brand that would become synonymous with luxury and success. Donald understood something that many of his competitors missed. In New York real estate, the building itself was only part of the equation. The other crucial element was the story, the mystique, the aspirational quality that made people want to be associated with your properties. This insight led to the creation of what would become Donald's most famous achievement, Trump Tower. It was a statement of arrival, a crystallization of Donald's vision for what luxury real estate could represent. The building's distinctive bronze-tinted glass facade caught the light in ways that made it stand out dramatically from its neighbors, while the interior featured the kind of opulent materials, marble, brass, and crystal, that made visitors feel they were entering a palace rather than a commercial building. Trump Tower became much more than a real estate project. It became the physical manifestation of the Trump brand. The building housed not only luxury condominiums and office spaces, but also Donald's own penthouse apartment, which was designed to reflect his taste for grandeur and his understanding of what luxury meant to his target market. When magazines and television shows featured glimpses of his gold-plated living spaces, they weren't just showing off wealth. They were reinforcing the brand image that Donald was carefully cultivating. But Donald's ambitions extended far beyond a single building, no matter how spectacular. Throughout the 1980s, he systematically expanded his real estate portfolio, acquiring properties in prime Manhattan locations and transforming them into showcases of luxury and exclusivity. Each project reinforced the Trump brand while generating substantial profits that could be reinvested into even more ambitious ventures. The decade also saw Donald's expansion into the casino business in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This wasn't just geographical diversification, it was strategic positioning in an industry that combined real estate development with entertainment and hospitality. The Trump Taj Mahal, which opened in 1990, was designed to be the most spectacular casino resort in the world. With over 120,000 square feet of gaming space, multiple restaurants, luxurious hotel rooms, and entertainment venues, it represented Donald's vision of what a truly world-class resort could be. During this period, Donald also began to understand the power of media attention and celebrity culture. He wasn't just building buildings, he was building a personal brand that people around the world would recognize and aspire to emulate. His appearances on talk shows, his quotes in newspapers and magazines, and his high-profile social life all contributed to the mystique surrounding the Trump name. This wasn't accidental. It was a carefully orchestrated strategy to ensure that Trump properties commanded premium prices because they offered not just luxury amenities, but association with a lifestyle that represented success and achievement.
Chapter 5: Media Stardom and Cultural Phenomenon. The transition from successful businessman to cultural icon didn't happen overnight, but by the 1990s, Donald Trump had become much more than just another real estate developer. He had evolved into a symbol of American entrepreneurship and success, a figure whose opinions on business, politics, and society were sought after by media outlets around the world. This transformation accelerated dramatically in 2004 with the launch of The Apprentice on NBC. The show's concept was brilliant in its simplicity. Bring together ambitious professionals from various backgrounds and have them compete in business challenges while Donald served as the ultimate judge of their performance. The show's boardroom scenes, where contestants faced Donald's penetrating questions and criticism, became appointment television for millions of Americans. But it was Donald's catchphrase that truly captured the public imagination. "You're fired" became more than just a way to eliminate contestants. It became a cultural phenomenon. People began using the phrase in their daily lives. Comedy shows parodied it, and it entered the American lexicon as shorthand for decisive leadership and uncompromising standards. The show's success made Donald a household name among people who had never heard of Trump Tower or his real estate empire. The impact of The Apprentice extended far beyond entertainment. It positioned Donald as America's CEO, the ultimate authority on business success and failure. Week after week, millions of viewers watched him evaluate business plans, assess leadership qualities, and make tough decisions about people's careers. This exposure didn't just increase his fame. It established his credibility as someone who understood what it took to succeed in the competitive world of American business. The show's success also provided Donald with a platform to share his business philosophy and life lessons with a mass audience. His direct communication style, his emphasis on results over excuses, and his willingness to make difficult decisions resonated with viewers who were frustrated with politicians and business leaders who seemed to avoid accountability. In many ways, The Apprentice served as Donald's first extended audition for political leadership, though neither he nor his audience fully realized it at the time. Chapter 6: Personal Life, Love, Family, and Relationships. Behind the public persona of the successful businessman and media personality was a complex personal life marked by deep relationships, profound losses, and the constant challenge of balancing public attention with private moments. Donald's romantic life unfolded across 3 marriages, each representing different chapters in his personal evolution and growth. His first marriage to Ivana Zelnichkova in 1977 was a partnership that combined personal attraction with business collaboration. Ivana wasn't just a beautiful model from Czechoslovakia. She was an intelligent, ambitious woman who brought her own skills and perspectives to the Trump Organization. She played crucial roles in the design and marketing of Trump properties, particularly the Trump Castle Casino in Atlantic City, where her European sensibilities helped create an atmosphere of old-world elegance in a modern American entertainment complex. Their marriage produced 3 children who would all play significant roles in Donald's life and business empire. Donald Jr., born in 1977, inherited his father's competitive spirit and business acumen. From an early age, he showed interest in the family business and would eventually become one of Donald's most trusted advisors and spokespersons. Ivanka, born in 1981, combined her father's business instincts with her mother's sense of style and sophistication. She would later become a successful businesswoman in her own right, building fashion and lifestyle brands while also serving as a senior advisor during her father's presidency. Eric, born in 1984, brought his own unique strengths to the family business, particularly in golf course development and management. The end of Donald's marriage to Ivana in 1992 was highly publicized, but both parents worked hard to ensure their children remained the priority. Despite the challenges of divorce, Donald and Ivana maintained a respectful relationship focused on co-parenting their 3 children and supporting each other's business endeavors. Donald's second marriage to Marla Maples in 1993 represented a different chapter in his personal life. Marla, an actress and performer, brought creativity and artistic sensibility to their relationship. Their daughter, Tiffany, born in 1993, inherited her mother's artistic interests while also developing academic pursuits that would lead her to law school. Though Donald's marriage to Marla ended in divorce in 1999, he remained committed to maintaining a strong relationship with Tiffany and supporting her educational and career goals. The third and most enduring chapter of Donald's romantic life began when he met Melania Knaus in 1998. Melania, a successful model from Slovenia, brought elegance, intelligence, and a global perspective to their relationship. Their 2005 wedding at Mar-a-Lago was a spectacular celebration that reflected both Donald's love for grand gestures and Melania's sophisticated taste. Their son, Baron, born in 2006, completed Donald's family and brought new joy to his role as a father. As a grandfather, Donald discovered new dimensions of family life that balanced his intense business and political activities. His grandchildren from Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric provided him with opportunities to step away from boardrooms and campaign events to simply enjoy the wonder and spontaneity that children bring to any family gathering.
Chapter 7. Business Challenges and Resiliency. No successful entrepreneur's journey is without significant obstacles, and Donald Trump's path to success was marked by several periods of intense financial pressure that tested every aspect of his business acumen and personal resiliency. The early 1990s presented perhaps the greatest challenge of his business career, when a combination of economic recession, overextended casino operations, and high debt levels threatened to destroy everything he had built. The crisis began with his Atlantic City casino operations, which had been financed through high-interest junk bonds during the casino boom of the 1980s. When the economy slowed and casino revenues declined, Donald found himself facing debt obligations that far exceeded his property's cash flow. The Trump Taj Mahal, despite its grandeur and initial success, was generating insufficient revenue to service its massive debt load. Financial experts and media commentators began speculating about the possibility of Trump Organization bankruptcy, and some even suggested that Donald's business empire was built on an unsustainable foundation of borrowed money. But this period of crisis revealed perhaps Donald's greatest strength as a businessman, his ability to negotiate and restructure deals when circumstances changed. Rather than simply declaring bankruptcy and walking away from his obligations, Donald entered into complex negotiations with his creditors, including major banks and bondholders. These negotiations required him to convince sophisticated financial institutions that restructuring his debt was in everyone's best interest, and that his properties retained underlying value that could be realized over time. The restructuring process was both humbling and educational. Donald had to accept reduced control over some of his properties, agree to personal guarantees on certain debts, and submit to closer financial oversight from his creditors. For someone accustomed to making unilateral decisions and maintaining complete control over his business empire, these restrictions were psychologically challenging. However, they also provided valuable lessons about risk management, financial structure, and the importance of maintaining strong relationships with financial partners. By the mid-1990s, Donald had successfully navigated through this crisis and emerged with a leaner, more focused business organization. The experience taught him important lessons about leverage, cash flow management, and the importance of diversifying revenue sources. More importantly, it demonstrated his ability to remain calm and strategic under extreme pressure, a quality that would serve him well in future business challenges and eventually in political leadership. The recovery from this financial crisis also marked the beginning of Donald's evolution from pure real estate developer to brand manager and licensing expert. He began to realize that the Trump name itself had value that could be monetized through licensing agreements, management contracts, and joint ventures that required less capital investment but offered significant revenue potential. Chapter 8. The Political Awakening, from Businessman to Presidential Candidate. For decades, Donald Trump had been more than just a businessman. He had been a public figure whose opinions on economic policy, international trade, and American competitiveness were regularly sought by media outlets and policy experts. His appearances on television talk shows and his quotes in major newspapers often focused on his belief that America was being taken advantage of in international trade deals and that the political establishment was failing to address the concerns of ordinary working Americans. However, the transition from political commentator to actual political candidate didn't happen until 2015, when Donald made the momentous decision to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States. This decision surprised many political observers, who had heard Donald discuss presidential ambitions for years, but had assumed he would never actually take the enormous risks involved in running for office. The announcement of his candidacy at Trump Tower in June 2015 was vintage Donald Trump, bold, dramatic, and designed to capture maximum media attention. His speech that day touched on themes that would define his entire campaign:
the need to restore American economic competitiveness, the importance of securing the nation's borders, and his belief that career politicians had failed to deliver results for the American people. What made Donald's candidacy unique wasn't just his outsider status, it was his communication style and his understanding of how to use media attention to build political momentum. While other candidates relied on traditional campaign strategies involving focus groups, polling data, and carefully crafted messages, Donald used his instinctive understanding of mass media and public attention to dominate news cycles and drive political conversations. His campaign rallies became phenomena unto themselves, drawing enormous crowds of enthusiastic supporters who were energized by his direct communication style and his willingness to challenge political correctness and establishment thinking. These events weren't just political gatherings, they were celebrations of a movement that many Americans felt had been building for years but had lacked a champion willing to challenge the existing political order. The primary campaign revealed Donald's ability to compete and win in an arena completely different from business or entertainment. He faced a field of experienced politicians, governors, senators, and former governors who had spent their entire careers preparing for presidential campaigns. Yet Donald's combination of media savvy, direct communication, and appeal to voters frustrated with conventional politics proved to be more powerful than traditional political experience.
Chapter 9. The Presidency, Leading the Free World. The 2016 general election represented one of the most dramatic political upsets in American history. Despite facing Hillary Clinton, a former First Lady, Senator, and Secretary of State with extensive political experience and strong support from the Democratic establishment, Donald Trump's message of change and his appeal to voters in key swing states proved decisive. His victory on November 8, 2016 shocked political experts, foreign leaders, and even some of his own supporters who had hoped for the best but prepared for defeat. The Electoral College results showed Donald's strategic understanding of American politics. While he lost the popular vote, he won the presidency by focusing on states where his message resonated most strongly with voters who felt left behind by economic changes and cultural shifts. The transition from businessman to President of the United States required Donald to adapt his leadership style to the unique demands of democratic governance. Unlike running a private company where decisions could be made quickly and implemented immediately, presidential leadership required building coalitions, working with Congress, and navigating complex constitutional constraints on executive power. Donald's presidency was marked by several significant policy initiatives that reflected his campaign promises and his long-held beliefs about American competitiveness and national security. His economic policies, including major tax cuts for businesses and individuals, were designed to stimulate economic growth and job creation. The results were impressive. Unemployment reached historic lows, particularly among minority communities, and economic growth accelerated during his first 3 years in office. Immigration policy became one of the defining issues of his presidency. His efforts to build a border wall between the United States and Mexico, while controversial, reflected his belief that national sovereignty required secure borders and controlled immigration. These policies sparked intense political debates, but also resulted in significant reductions in illegal border crossings and increased cooperation with Mexico on immigration enforcement. Foreign policy under Donald's leadership represented a dramatic departure from traditional diplomatic approaches. His America First philosophy emphasized the need to renegotiate trade deals, challenge international agreements that he believed disadvantaged American interests, and demand that allies contribute more to their own defense. His willingness to engage directly with adversaries like North Korea's Kim Jong-un and China's Xi Jinping demonstrated his belief that personal relationships and direct negotiation could solve problems that had persisted for decades. The COVID-19 pandemic presented unprecedented challenges that tested every aspect of Donald's leadership abilities.
His administration's efforts to accelerate vaccine development through Operation Warp Speed represented one of the most successful public-private partnerships in American history, delivering effective vaccines in record time. However, the pandemic's economic and social impacts also created political challenges that would influence the 2020 election. Chapter 10: Challenges, Controversies, and Resilience. No presidency in modern American history has been more intensely scrutinized or more politically polarizing than Donald Trump's time in office. From the very beginning of his administration, he faced investigations, media criticism, and political opposition that tested his ability to govern effectively while defending his actions and decisions. The Mueller investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election dominated headlines for nearly 2 years and created a cloud of uncertainty over his administration. Despite the investigation's conclusion that no criminal conspiracy had been established, the political damage from constant speculation and media coverage affected his ability to build bipartisan support for his policy initiatives. The 2019 impeachment proceedings in the House of Representatives represented perhaps the most serious constitutional crisis of his presidency. The charges related to his phone call with Ukraine's president and allegations that he had abused his power by requesting investigations into his political opponents. The Senate's decision to acquit him demonstrated the deep partisan divisions that characterized American politics during his presidency, but also showed his ability to maintain support among Republican legislators and voters. Throughout these challenges, Donald demonstrated the same resilience and determination that had carried him through business crises and personal setbacks. Rather than allowing criticism and investigations to paralyze his administration, he continued to pursue his policy agenda and communicate directly with the American people through social media and public appearances. His use of Twitter as a direct communication channel bypassed traditional media filters and allowed him to respond immediately to criticism and share his perspectives on current events. While this approach sometimes created controversy, it also gave him unprecedented ability to influence public debate and maintain connection with his supporters.
The 2020 presidential election took place during extraordinary circumstances, with the COVID-19 pandemic creating unprecedented challenges for campaign activities, voting procedures, and economic conditions. Donald's opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, represented the Democratic establishment's choice for a return to more traditional political leadership and governance approaches. The election results were closer than many polls had predicted, with Donald receiving over 74 million votes, the second highest total in American history. However, Joe Biden's victory in key swing states provided him with the Electoral College majority needed to win the presidency. The closeness of the results in several states, combined with significant changes in voting procedures due to the pandemic, led to numerous legal challenges and allegations of irregularities. Donald's response to the election results reflected his lifelong unwillingness to accept defeat without fighting for what he believed was right. His legal challenges and public statements about election integrity sparked intense debate about voting procedures, election security, and the role of state and federal officials in administering elections. The events of January 6, 2021, when supporters gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest the election results, and some entered the Capitol building, represented one of the most controversial moments in recent American political history. While Donald had called for peaceful protest, the day's events created additional political challenges and led to his second impeachment by the House of Representatives. The peaceful transfer of power that occurred on January 20, 2021, when Joe Biden was sworn in as the 46th president, demonstrated the strength of American democratic institutions, even during periods of intense political disagreement.
Donald's departure from Washington that morning marked the end of one of the most consequential presidencies in modern American history. The transition from president back to private citizen represented another significant chapter in Donald Trump's remarkable life story. Rather than retiring to write memoirs or focus exclusively on personal interest, he remained actively engaged in political discussions and continued to influence American politics through his statements, endorsements, and public appearances. His return to business activities included renewed focus on his golf courses, hotels, and real estate properties around the world. The Trump Organization, which had been managed by his sons during his presidency, resumed its expansion plans and continued to develop new projects that reflected the family's long-term vision for the brand. More significantly, his continued political influence became evident through his endorsements of candidates in Republican primary elections and his ongoing communication with supporters through rallies, statements, and social media platforms. His ability to influence election outcomes demonstrated that his political movement remained strong and that his supporters remained loyal to his vision for America's future. The speculation about a potential 2024 presidential campaign reflected both his own continued political ambitions and the encouragement he received from supporters who believed his leadership was needed to address ongoing economic and security challenges facing the nation. As we reach the end of our journey through Donald Trump's extraordinary life story, it's important to consider the lasting impact of his business innovations, media presence, and political leadership. From his early days learning real estate development from his father to his presidency and beyond, Donald has consistently challenged conventional wisdom and pursued his vision regardless of criticism or obstacles. His business legacy includes not just the buildings that bear his name, but also his pioneering work in brand development and licensing that transformed how real estate developers think about their businesses. The Trump brand became synonymous with luxury and success, inspiring countless entrepreneurs to think beyond traditional business models. His media presence, particularly through The Apprentice, introduced business education and entrepreneurship to millions of Americans who might never have otherwise engaged with these topics. His direct communication style and willingness to make tough decisions became models for leadership that continued to influence business culture. His political impact extends far beyond his single term as president. His success in mobilizing voters who had become disconnected from traditional politics, his ability to communicate complex policy issues in accessible language, and his willingness to challenge established political norms have permanently altered American political discourse. Perhaps most importantly, Donald Trump's life story demonstrates the enduring power of the American dream. The idea that through hard work, determination, and willingness to take risks, it's possible to achieve extraordinary success regardless of where you started life. Conclusion: the continuing story. As we wrap up today's deep dive into Donald Trump's fascinating life story here on Global History Explorer, it's clear that we've witnessed one of the most remarkable journeys in modern American history. From a young boy in Queens learning business lessons at his family's dinner table to the most powerful office in the world, Donald's story embodies the complexity, opportunity, and endless possibilities that define the American experience. What makes this story particularly compelling is that it's still being written. At an age when most people are enjoying retirement, Donald Trump remains actively engaged in business, politics, and public discourse. His influence on American culture, politics, and business continues to evolve, ensuring that future historians will have even more chapters to analyze and understand. The lessons from Donald's life are relevant for anyone pursuing ambitious goals in any field. His willingness to take calculated risks, his ability to recover from setbacks, his understanding of the power of branding and communication, and his refusal to accept limitations imposed by others offer valuable insights for entrepreneurs, leaders, and anyone seeking to make their mark on the world. All right, as always, keep exploring history and keep learning. And remember, every great story starts with someone who dared to dream big and work hard to make those dreams reality. This is Global History Explorer, signing off. See you in the next adventure through time.